Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And today's going to be just a little bit different. Instead of having the one singular video where I talk about 4 to 5 topics, I'm instead going to have 2 separate videos where we discuss 2 major topics. Now, the reason for this is because there's some pretty big things happening right now that needs to be thoroughly covered. One is the Nintendo Direct, which I will cover after that showcase goes live later today. I'm very, very much looking forward to that. But as for this particular video here, we're going to talk about the CMA's provisional findings regarding the Microsoft Activision Blizzard case. They have now officially voiced their concerns and have listed all the reasons as to why. So there are now legitimate questions if this deal is dead in the water. There's a lot of concern, a lot of hysteria, and just knee-jerk reactions over this news. However, on this channel, we don't do that. What I try to do in this channel is I try to assess news with a level head and not necessarily just go with the online reactions that you see within the community. And honestly here, I don't think the findings today was necessarily the worst case scenario for Microsoft, despite what some of the community might believe. Not really the best thing either, but also something Microsoft can ultimately work with. Now, we'll get into all that a little later on, but first, let's just go ahead and get into this and see exactly what's happening here. So the CMA did post this in the morning where they said, a CMA investigation has provisionally concluded that Microsoft's proposed acquisition of Activision could result in higher prices, fewer choices, or less innovation for UK gamers. Now, the reason that they've come to this conclusion seems to be for 2 primary reasons, and we'll kind of go over each one by one. The first one here, though, is the one that I think is more important to us hardcore gamers, and that's the impact that it can make on console gaming, most notably in regards to Call of Duty. They said this: the CMA provisionally found that a small number of key games, including Call of Duty, Activision's flagship game, play an important role in driving competition between consoles. The evidence available to the CMA, including data on how Microsoft measures the value of customers in the ordinary course of business, currently indicates that Microsoft would find it commercially beneficial to make Activision's games exclusive to its own consoles, or only available on PlayStation under materially worse conditions. The CMA's provisional findings note that this strategy of buying gaming studios and making their content exclusive to Microsoft's platforms has been used by Microsoft following several previous acquisitions of games studios. The CMA provisionally found that weakening competition by restricting the access that other platforms have to Activision's games could substantially reduce the competition between Xbox and PlayStation in the UK, in turn harming UK gamers. Now, this really has been the ongoing headache Microsoft has pretty much dealt with since day one of announcing their intent to acquire Activision Blizzard. The concern that Call of Duty will eventually become exclusive to Xbox. Now, the strange part about this entire story, though, has always been Microsoft insists, they have been very adamant that that's not the case. They continue to say that they want to treat it like Minecraft. They want Call of Duty to be on more devices, including, of course, PlayStation, and not less. But it doesn't seem like the CMA is willing to just take Microsoft's word for it. They look at other Xbox acquisitions such as Bethesda, Obsidian Entertainment, Rare, etc., and they've concluded, because they've made some of their other games exclusive, that could happen with Activision Blizzard as well. Again, most notably with Call of Duty. Again, we'll come back to that part here in just a second, because this is where it could bode well for Microsoft. But before we do that, let's just go and look at their other primary concern here, which oddly enough is cloud gaming. Yeah, okay, so they state the CMA provisionally found that being able to offer popular games will be important for cloud gaming providers to attract users as the market continues to grow and develop. The evidence available to the CMA currently indicates that Microsoft would find it commercially beneficial to make Activision's games exclusive to its own cloud gaming service or only available on other services under materially worse conditions. Microsoft already accounts for an estimated 60 to 70% of global cloud gaming services and also has other important strengths in cloud gaming, from owning Xbox, the leading PC operating system, Windows, and a global cloud computing infrastructure in Azure and Xbox cloud gaming. The CMA provisionally found that buying one of the world's most important game publishers would reinforce this strong position and substantially reduce the competition that Microsoft would otherwise face in the cloud gaming market in the UK. This could alter the future of gaming, potentially harming UK gamers, particularly those who cannot afford or do not want to buy an expensive gaming console or gaming PC. Yeah, okay, so that last line is It's a little bit of a strange comment. I've seen a lot of people point that out online, and maybe that could be a sign that they don't completely understand what they're researching here. But at the same time, this is something that we have seen before. Cloud gaming has been such a sticking point with regulators that it's almost kind of laughable in the sense that it's highly speculative with no real proof. See, the problem here is that they can't predict the future, and the truth of the matter is, cloud gaming is in its infancy stage. It's hard to tell, even with this buyout, what will happen with cloud gaming. Yes, Activision Blizzard, without a doubt, will certainly help Microsoft push cloud gaming forward, but that doesn't change the fact that the future of cloud gaming is largely unknown, to the point that we don't even know if these companies will ever have success with cloud gaming. That is factually unknown as of this moment. I don't think that you can look at Xbox Cloud Gaming and sit here and say that it's some resounding success as it currently stands. It's not. It's attached to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, and some people will just kind of jump on there and play a game every once in a while, but I don't think that it's really reached that mass market or anywhere close to anything like that. Really, I'd say if anything, Microsoft right now, currently as it stands, is more of a pioneer to cloud gaming than if anything. So I do find it a little bit strange that these regulators continue to hamper such technology, all because they're concerned about an undefined future that they can't predict. A lot of this actually seems a little reactionary in the sense that some of these regulators regret letting, something like Meta acquire WhatsApp. So more or less, they're being a little cautious about what can possibly happen in the future because they regret previous acquisitions that they approved. Now, am I saying that is reason to block a deal like this? No, that's not what I'm saying, but I feel like it is a little reactionary. With that said, though, these are the two primary concerns that the CMA have, and this is why they currently oppose the Activision Blizzard buyout as it stands. However, and okay, this is the important part that everybody needs to kind of keep in mind, this is the provisional findings. Despite what some people online might want to lead people to believe, this is still not over. Microsoft indeed does still have an opportunity to offer remedies to these concerns, which actually might be a little straightforward. Again, we'll come back to that here in just a second. But first, the CMA, they did lay out some of their own solutions, which are as followed. They stated at this stage, the CMA has identified the following possible structural remedies. A, requiring a partial divestiture of Activision Blizzard. This may be divestiture of the business associated with Call of Duty. 2, divestiture of the Activision segment of Activision Blizzard, which would include the business associated with Call of Duty. And then 3, divestiture of Activision segment and the Blizzard segment of Activision Blizzard, which would include the business associated with Call of Duty and World of Warcraft, among other titles. So they're essentially saying that if Microsoft wants Activision Blizzard, they're going to need to sell Call of Duty and the business related to it. So this is a completely different take than what we have kind of talked about in the past. And all things considered, this might be too harsh of a concession for Microsoft to simply accept. Call of Duty is one of the most significant reasons that Activision Blizzard is worth the acquisition in the first place. Call of Duty brings in a huge influx of money that in the long run would make a buyout of this caliber worth it. Without Call of Duty, Microsoft's outlook of this acquisition might be quite different. See, despite them previously saying that this buyout is more about Candy Crush than Call of Duty, there's no doubt in my mind that Call of Duty still plays a significant part in them pulling the trigger for a nearly $70 billion acquisition. This acquisition is not nearly as enticing without Call of Duty, even if it's not exclusive to Xbox. Now, they've remained clear it's not about exclusivity, but Call of Duty still brings in a lot of money, and without Call of Duty, this acquisition does look quite a bit different, I'm sure, for Microsoft. Now, again, with all of that said, though, this is the provisional findings, and the CMA did leave the door open for behavioral remedies. Now, from my understanding, it's rare for the CMA to accept these type of remedies after provisional findings like this. However, based on their very own statement, Microsoft might legitimately have a real opportunity here. Now, the reason I say this is quite simply because, tucked away in the findings, the CMA noted something very Interesting. We can actually check it out here where they said, during our investigation, Microsoft told us that it has offered to enter into new long-term agreements with Sony, Nintendo, and Steam to supply them with Call of Duty post-merger. Whether some form of supplier licensing agreement might satisfactorily remedy our concerns in gaming consoles is something that we will consider as a part of our remedies process, rather than our competitive assessment. In other words, they previously were not looking at those remedies. They did not take those into consideration in this part of the process. That is actually the next part of the process, similar to what we're seeing in the EU regulatory process and their objection statement. See, something that I kind of noticed today that stood out to me as maybe a little peculiar is that Microsoft and Activision seems relatively calm with the CMA's findings, and this might actually have something to do with that. The CMA is leaving the door open for these type of remedies. They've not officially gone over Microsoft's previous proposal, and that is something that they can work out here. In fact, Lulu Chang, which, if you've been following her, she has been pretty active in responding to some of these regulatory bodies, and at times she has been pretty aggressive. And well, she did respond here by saying this: "Today, the CMA released its provisional findings on our deal. They're exactly as they sound, provisional. This means the CMA lays out its concerns in writing, and now both we and Microsoft have a chance to respond. We hope between now and April, we'll be able to help the CMA better understand our industry to ensure they can achieve their stated mandate, and truly help the UK promote an environment where 1, people can be confident they are getting great choices and fair deals, 2, competitive, fair dealing business can innovate and thrive, and then 3, the whole UK economy can grow productively and sustainably. We look forward to addressing the CMA's concerns, and we're confident this deal is good for players and good for competition in the gaming industry." Now, again, if you've been following her for a while, this is actually a relatively tame tweet from her that just kind of reassures everybody that they'll now sit down with the CMA and see if they can work something out together. That is the main question going forward. What solution or solutions can they come up with that both can agree to? I think that if the CMA is truly committed to a divestiture, if that's all they are willing to accept, this could be it for the deal. I'm not convinced that Microsoft would be willing to sell off Call of Duty and the studios involved there. However, with them leaving the door open to behavioral remedies such as Microsoft's previous offer, I think there are pretty straightforward ways to alleviate any concern that they have. It's just a matter of how much Microsoft wants this to happen, how much they're willing to offer here. But really, I think the easiest solution is to just guarantee Call of Duty will remain multi-platform, including cloud gaming. Since those are the main concerns for the CMA, Microsoft might need to ensure Call of Duty can be accessed on other cloud-based platforms beyond just their own. I feel like that they would probably be willing to do that. They've already offered, of course, the 10-year contract to Nintendo, Valve, and PlayStation, but if the CMA isn't satisfied with that per se, then they could actually go beyond just those 10 years. Previously, Microsoft seemed against ensuring a perpetual agreement, but if the CMA isn't willing to take that 10-year agreement, that is something that they might be willing to explore. They might reconsider that and say, hey, okay, we'll make sure PlayStation gets Call of Duty as long as PlayStation consoles exist. They can also offer Sony an option to include Call of Duty in their own subscription services. We did hear previously that they were willing to do this. I'm sure they'll have to pay a fee for it and things like that. Obviously, they can't just give Call of Duty away for free. But a lot of the issues that the CMA seems to have is the possibility of Call of Duty being exclusive to Xbox or their cloud gaming service. I mean, if you think about it, I think both of those concerns can be alleviated in reasonable, logical ways. This is not impossible by any stretch of the means. In fact, Microsoft could even abandon the idea of Call of Duty going to Xbox Game Pass if that is something that the CMA has a problem with. I mean, we're not saying that here, but it is something else that they could offer. Ultimately, though, regardless if Call of Duty just goes completely multi-platform, even if it's not in Game Pass, Microsoft will still make a ton of money off of Call of Duty, and then they could just use other Activision Blizzard franchises to promote things like their Game Pass service. So as long as this doesn't include all the other Activision Blizzard King IP like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Diablo, etc., then yeah, Microsoft very well might be willing to do all this. Reading through the CMA's findings, though, and then also Activision's response, again, despite some of the reactions I've seen online, this deal is not dead. Again, I don't necessarily think that this is the best thing in the world for Microsoft per se, But there are logical and reasonable solutions here that the two could agree to, as long as the CMA really is open-minded here, and that's the bottom line. I've said this before, and I'll just kind of say it again here. Nobody knows 100% what's going to happen, and if anybody tries to guarantee something one way or the other, they're fooling everybody, including themselves. That still remains here. I know there's a lot of over-the-top reactions right now. That's what the internet does, but this still absolutely could go either way. In fact, actually, let's just go and take a look at what's going to happen next. That way we have a better timeline to kind of understand how all this is going to play out. So Microsoft now has 2 weeks to provide the CMA with their remedies. The CMA is now inviting responses from interested parties to its list of proposed remedies by February 22nd, and responses to its provisional findings by March 1st. The CMA's final report is then due by April 26th. So there it is. We are now officially moving into the final steps of the process released over the CMA, and we'll see what happens going forward and if Microsoft can alleviate these concerns. One way or the other, though, I know this has been a crazy, crazy wild ride, but it is almost over. And I don't know about you all, but whatever happens going forward, I'm ready for all of us to just kind of be able to move on from this. This has just been such a crazy, crazy ride from the get-go, and yeah, I'm ready to see what's going to happen whichever way it swings. As always, though, I will keep you all updated as we hear more. Let's just go and take a look at the poll of the day, though, and to align with the most recent breaking news, I asked you all, do you still think Microsoft will complete the Activision Blizzard buyout? And interestingly enough, you all do remain confident, with 77% of you saying yes, while 17% of you said no. And actually, looking through the comments, several of you all did just kind of echo what I said. Several of you did say that the CMA's demands don't seem overly difficult to remedy, which is something that I agree with. You can actually see here where Ricky Worthington said, I don't see why not. If the CMA is really only concerned about Call of Duty, then put on paper a guarantee of it remaining multi-platform beyond the 10-year agreement they already put out, and it's done. So again, yeah, these remedies seem pretty straightforward. There's solutions here without a doubt, so long as the CMA is actually open-minded to these type of remedies. Despite the CMA's track record of opposing remedies after provisional findings, yeah, I do feel there's a legitimate opportunity that Microsoft can appease these demands. We'll see, though. There's certainly no guarantee here, but one thing that we do know is that we're almost to the finish line here, and as always, stay tuned as I will continue to keep you all updated going forward. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode. But if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.